You are trying to get the air under your wings to get this thing off the ground. It takes activity. Hey. Welcome to another super exciting episode of Pull Up and Thrive. I am so excited to be with you again on this microphone. And if you're joining me on YouTube, welcome. Thank you for being here. Thank you for taking the time to listen. Thank you for taking the time to listen, reach out, comment, review, share. It means a lot. But remember, I am here for you. This show has always been about you, and it will continue to be about you because I help overwhelmed business owners overcome adversity so you can avoid the crash and burn and have the life and business that you want. So before we get started, just want to mention again that we are on YouTube. So if you're listening to this wherever you listen to podcasts, you can view the same episode. It will have a little bit extra content because it's not as edited on YouTube. I will have a link in the show notes to go over there and check it out. Plus, there's tons of other content as well. So, you don't need work-life balance. You need work-life focus. Especially when you're trying to get something off the ground. Whenever you're starting something from scratch, it takes so much energy because you have no momentum. It is like pushing a car that is not running. Whenever you're trying to push the car, you have no momentum. I was doing some research as I was getting ready for this show, and I had always heard that a jet, an airplane, needs so much more fuel to get off the ground than it does to maintain its cruising altitude. So I did some research, I did some investigating, and a Boeing 747, which is a passenger jet that accommodates about 400 passengers. You all have probably ridden on one, if not a 747, something very, very similar. But for the jet to take off, I need you to listen to this. To get this jet off the ground, to go from the ground to cruising altitude takes about 10 minutes. And in 10 minutes, it uses about 5,000 gallons worth of fuel. So next time that you're fueling your car or truck up at the pump, just be glad that you're not pumping 5,000 gallons. So it takes 5,000 gallons to get this thing off of the ground. That is about 500 gallons per minute. Okay? But once that it reaches cruising altitude, it burns 3,600 gallons an hour or 60 gallons per minute. So if you're trying to get something off the ground, it is going to take way more time, way more energy, way more effort and activity to get this thing off the ground. You will be working your brains out, working your butt off all the time. And what we hear is you have to have work-life balance. Are you a balance in your life, brother? Oh, brother, you've been working too much, brother. Oh, boy. I hear it from people who are on the same side of the fence as I am all the time, that if you find work-life balance, you need to freeze. Because if you move, you are going to be out of balance. Work-life balance is a myth. You will never be 100% balanced. Because if you're having a baby, are you perfectly balanced in your life? No. You are getting minimal sleep. Your 100% focus is on that baby. And I don't want to get ahead of myself, but let me just start by saying work-life balance is a myth. So what we want is work-life focus, because the last thing that we want to do is reach a level of success and we lose our family, our kids. We don't have relationships with those who are who should be most important to you. That is the last thing that we want to do. So I have 4 things here that I'm going to lay out how I do it. This is every show, every episode of Pull Up and Thrive, and every episode on YouTube, any reels or any place that you see me talking about something, this is what I have experienced. This is what I have lived. This is what I do. This is not theory. This is not speculation. This is how I do it. And if I have done it wrong, I'm going to say, hey, I blew it. I did it wrong. Do not do what I did. So, number 1, you have to communicate. Communicate early and often to those who are important in your life. If you're married, it is your spouse. If you're thinking about starting a business, thinking about cranking up some activity, you have to communicate. You have to communicate on the front end. This is what I'm thinking. I want to go after this dream. I want to go after this business. I want to learn how to do a trade. I want to learn how to do, I want to play a musical instrument. And I want to get to a certain level, and whatever that is for you. Communicate with your spouse. And more than just, hey, I want to start a business, or I want to get out of debt, or I want to do this activity, communicate the why. What is the why behind that? What would it mean for you and your family if you attained that dream? You have to have a big enough why, because it always has to be greater than money, because it's going to get hard. It is going to get difficult, and you have to have a big enough why to keep you going. And I always say why has to be more than money. Because if you have a big enough why, you can do anything that you hate long enough to get you where you want to go. Whenever Sarah and I were getting out of debt, and we were working like crazy, having tons of yard sales, side jobs. I mean, we were mowing lawns. All right, Sarah had bought a push lawnmower at a yard sale for like $5. And we were mowing lawns because we were like, we are getting out of debt. We were living on nothing. And I'm going to share what I was making at this point in our life here in just a minute. But we had a big enough why. We knew what it would mean for us if, 1, the business doesn't go out of business, 2, if we had a few dollars in the bank, and if we didn't owe everybody. What does that look like for you? What would it be for you not to be living paycheck to paycheck? Well, what are you going to do about it? And you're not going to get there without going to number 2, and number 2 is sacrifice. There is no baby has ever been born into the world without pain. There is no success without failure, and there are no wins without sacrifice. And let me tell you this, very few people are going to understand your sacrifice. Whenever you make a decision, whenever Sarah and I made the decision, we are getting out of debt. I don't care what it takes to get there. And people thought that we were crazy. But we knew what we were trying to do. And we were on the same page. We had the same focus. So few people will understand your sacrifice. But whenever you start to win, even fewer people will appreciate the sacrifice. And that is something that you just have to get used to. Because what happens is that you will work your butt off for 2 years. Working extra jobs, long hours, overtime, and extra business. Selling things that you love. Maybe your boat or your four-wheeler or, something that you really loved. You had to get rid of it because there was a greater purpose. Because we're trying to get to this point. So you work your butt off and you sacrifice and you get to the point to where you have this saved up money and you're able to purchase something that has great value to you. And you will hear the phrase, oh, it must be nice. Oh, it must be nice to go on a vacation. Oh, it must be nice to drive a nice truck. Oh, it must be nice to whatever. So as you're sacrificing, very few people will understand. And whenever you have reached that goal, a pinnacle in your life, fewer people will appreciate the sacrifice. And that's just life. So know that now. So whenever you do put in the work and you sacrifice and you get there, just expect to hear that. And I just say, well, they don't understand. And that's okay. That is okay, because I talked to the same people while we were sacrificing. This is what we're doing. This is where we're going. And this is how you can do it too. And so many people say, well, I ain't going to do that. I'm not going to sacrifice. There is no way that I'm going to sell my SUV. There is no way that I will sacrifice for the short term to have enjoyment in the long term. I talk to them all the time. And they say, there's no way I'm going to do that. So I don't want to get hung up on this, but you have to sacrifice. I've worked long days, long hours, weekends, holidays, overnights for little to no pay. And even as you're building something, there is no guarantee that you will even make money in the future. Now, let's go to a definition of entrepreneur, because that's the new fad. Everybody wants to be an entrepreneur, and that's awesome. That is fantastic. Everyone wants to be an entrepreneur. The definition, going to the dictionary, entrepreneur, a person who organizes and operates a business or businesses, taking on greater than normal financial risks in order to do so. So if there's no risk, there is no reward. So you can play it safe and never take a risk, and that's fine. You make your own decisions. But if you want that reward, you have to take a calculated risk. Now, after Lisa passed away, I lost my first wife to cancer. So Lisa passes away. We lose our largest customer. I get remarried and suffer near financial ruin in under 12 months. It was a whirlwind. It was like things of God and things not of God just happening all at one time. And the first year, I didn't have a plan at all. I was just trying not to get sued. That was my plan. Avoid being sued. But in the second year, Sarah and I had been married for about 2 months. We got on a plan. And our plan was Dave Ramsey's Financial Peace University, FPU. We are getting out of debt. So that year, 2008, if you look at everything that I paid myself, now, I'm going to tell you this. I made $100,000 over a 5-year period. If you take everything that I paid myself over a 5-year period, I made $100,000. The first year, 2008, I paid myself $2,272. That is like $1.14 an hour if you're working 40-hour weeks. Who would do that? Who would do that? People who have a desire to win will do that. People who understand a little sacrifice now will give me years of prosperity in the future. There is no harvest without sowing. There are so many references in the Bible to farming. Farming is hard. Farming is hard, especially in the biblical days. They didn't have GPS-controlled tractors. They were breaking up the fallow ground by hand with oxen, with a plow hooked up to an oxen, to mules, whatever they had. Farming was hard. But if you can put in the hard work, you have the opportunity, you have the option to reach a harvest. To reap a harvest, sorry. So 2008, I made $2,200. 2009, I paid myself just shy of $10,000. 2010, I paid myself $22,000. I am working my way up the ladder. So I'm working long hours for no money, but I knew I had to stay with it. Now, you ask the question, when should I quit? How long should I go before I quit? I say, as long as you can. See, I had a mess to clean up. I had tons of debt. I owed the IRS. I had personal loans, credit cards, vendors. I owed everybody. In fact, I saw a guy walking down the road just a little while ago, and I owed him money. But I owed everybody. So if you have a mess, you have to clean up the mess first. This is why you have to have a big dream. This is the importance of the big why. Once we get through this, we can do that. But we have to get through this first. So when should I say that I quit? I will drop episode 28 into the show notes where I answer that exact question. And then Sarah and I struggled with infertility for 9 years. We basically started trying to have a family on our honeymoon. But it took us 9 years before we got our first positive pregnancy test. And I talk more about this in episode 2, 6 steps to overcoming adversity. And I'll drop that in the show notes as well. So when do I quit? You have to do what's right for you. In Seth Godin's book, The Dip, he answers the question, when should I quit? And he gives 2 times that you should quit. 1, before you start. You count the cost, you look at it, and you say, no, I'm not going to do it. Or a number 2, when you have accomplished the goal, you quit. But you have to do what is right for you. Because if Sarah and I would have given up, if we would have quit and said, this is too hard, it's not happening, it is never going to happen, we would not have 2 beautiful twin girls right now. It's hard. It is hard whenever you're in the middle of trying to go after that dream. Whether it's a business, financial goal, family goal, whatever it is, whenever you're in the middle of it, it is hard. It is hard. That is why people quit, because they can't do it. They can't take it. They give up. But if you give up, you will definitely not reach the goal. You will definitely not get to the dream. You will definitely not have the business that you want. You will definitely not have that family. Or whatever that thing is, if you quit, you will be guaranteed not to get to where you want to go. So you have to make the decision that is best for you. And number 3, activity. You are doing anything and everything because you're not for sure what is going to work. You have to have activity. Whenever we were getting out of debt, we had a ton of activity. We were doing yard sales. We were side jobs, extra hours. We are selling stuff. We are getting out of debt. We had tons and tons and tons and tons and tons of activity. Or if you're growing that business, or you're trying to find an answer to a complicated problem, you have to have lots of activity. Do this, do that, look here, look there. Talk to people, Google it, find someone that's doing what you want to do. So you have activity, and you are putting yourself out there, because what really happens whenever you're trying to get that big break, you're trying to find that big break, what happens is that the break finds you, because you are making yourself visible. You are knocking on doors, posting on social, activity. If it's a business, you are handing out your business cards and flyers, and you're telling your friends, and you're knocking on doors, and you're seeing people and talking to people, and activity. That is why I'm on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, podcasting, coaching, speaking, lots of activity right now. It takes so much activity, so much energy. Remember the jet? And you're trying to get lift. You are trying to get the air under your wings to get this thing off the ground. It takes activity. A lot of it. I talk to guys that are delusional, and they're like, I want to start a business, but I'm not going to work any overtime, no late nights, no weekends. I'm not going to miss any family events. And I'm like, you are a delusional. What it sounds like you are looking for is a job. If you want to win at scale, it takes communication, sacrifice, and a ton of activity. Right now, I am in my YouTube studio, podcast room, whatever this place is called. It's a Sunday afternoon. Nobody's here. I was here yesterday working on this as well. Activity. You have to have activity. I am starting a business and I don't have any work. What do? Activity. Knock on doors, post on social. You have to keep going. You have to keep pushing, and you have to have that I will not be denied. I am going after this. I have talked to my board of directors. I have talked with my spouse. We are on the same page, and we are going after this. And I will not be denied. And this takes us to number 4. You have to have intentional breaks. You must be intentional about the relationships that are important to you. You have to schedule family nights, dinners, outings, where you are doing nothing but focusing on the family or on that relationship. This right here is what's going on right now. I so hate to see it. Sarah and I will be out with our family at a restaurant, and almost every single person at every single table is on their blasted phone. And they're so disillusioned to think, well, I ain't going to work overtime. I'm not going to work weekends because I'm going to miss out on the family. You're missing out on your family every day. I hear the phrase, I'm not going to sacrifice my family. You have to be intentional about this thing that we call life. You are not going to show up and reach your hopes, your dreams, your ambitions by accident. There are no accidents. Whenever a football team shows up at the Super Bowl, that was no accident. Whenever Sarah and I got out of debt and we had paid off $275,000 in 2.5 years, that was no accident. This is how I've done it, and this is how you can do it too. What do? I help overwhelmed business owners overcome adversity so you can avoid the crash and burn, so you can avoid the mistakes that I have made, and I've made more than most. So don't do these mistakes, because then you can have the life and business that you want. So in the handyman business, we started it 1.5 years ago. Tons of communication before we ever started. And then my help quit. That's a whole other story. But then it's all on me. I'm working late nights, weekends. I worked like three weeks in a row. No days off. Every single day. It was in May, so it fell on Mother's Day. And I'm out there working on Mother's Day. But it was tons of communication. Tons of communication with Sarah. This is what's going on. This is what has to happen. And then she says, well, do you want to go out there and work this afternoon? So Sarah and I both went together and worked on this job. And I had a longtime team member that was getting married, John Michael. So I started early, worked until 4, went home, showered, changed, went to the wedding, then left the wedding and went back to work and worked until dark. There are no babies without pain. There is no success without failures, and there are no wins without sacrifice. And if I can do it, you can do it too. I'm going to put a bow on this. You don't need work-life balance. You need work-life focus. Number 1, you have to communicate early and often. Number 2, sacrifice. 3, activity. 4, intentional breaks. If you can do these 4 things, you too can overcome adversity, avoid the crash and burn, and have the life and business that you want. Thank you for joining me. It means a lot. Until next time, I'm Stephen Capps. You're the best.